now turn to Part 4. Part 4. In this part you will hear an extract from a scientific radio programme about unusual animal behaviour. For questions 31 to 33 and 38 to 40, listen and complete the sentences below. Write no more than 3 words for each answer. For questions 34 to 37, complete the table. Write no more than 3 words for each answer. 1 mark will be awarded for each correct answer. You have 1 minute to read the questions. Now listen and answer the questions.
As part of my research on animal behavior during unusual planetary occurrences, I found myself in Vicuña, in Chile, during a solar eclipse. The city was within the path of a total eclipse. The sun, the moon, and the earth, in that order, move into perfect alignment, cloaking everything in darkness. For just 140 seconds, the moon rolled in front of the sun. The sunlight went out, and the air suddenly turned cold. The humans cheered and clapped, while flocks of birds began to panic, their timeless routine disrupted. I was here to observe the birds, not the eclipse. For most animals, the structure of their day, and indeed their year, depends on the light-dark cycle, and the moon's regular journey from full moon to full moon over 28 nights. These regular and rhythmic cycles in the length of days and nights tell animals when they should be foraging, when they should be asleep, when it is time to migrate, and when it is time to breed and raise their young. Animals can tell all this from how many hours of daylight they have and the levels of light, or rather darkness, they experience at night. But what happens to animals when the moon or the sun does something unusual or unexpected, such as an eclipse? Of all the cosmic events, the solar eclipses prompt perhaps the biggest change in animal behavior. Puzzled animals that are active during the day head back to their nighttime abodes, while nocturnal animals think they have overslept. A solar eclipse occurs when the sun, moon, and earth are aligned on the same axis, so the moon completely blocks the sun. Around the world, unusual incidences of animal behavior are observed and reported, while everyone else is watching the eclipse. Some spider species begin to break down their webs during an eclipse, as they typically do at the end of the day. Once the eclipse has passed, they begin to rebuild them. Similarly, fish and birds that are active during the day head for their nighttime resting places, while nocturnal bats appear, seemingly tricked by the sudden darkness. Hippopotami in Zimbabwe were observed leaving their rivers during an eclipse, heading towards their nocturnal feeding grounds on dry land. Midway through their departure from the water, the eclipse passed, daylight resumed, and the hippos cut short their efforts. The animals appeared agitated and stressed after the eclipse for the remainder of the day. A lunar eclipse happens when the moon, earth, and sun are very closely aligned, with Earth positioned between the two. As the moon passes directly behind us, Earth blocks sunlight from reaching the moon, causing a reddish glow to appear. These so-called blood moons can only appear where there is a full moon, so it's difficult to separate the impact, the that lunar eclipses have on animals' reactions compared to a standard full moon. A study in 2010 discovered that a species in Argentina, known as the owl monkeys, which are typically nocturnal, did not start to forage during a lunar eclipse, as their world became very much darker. They may have struggled to see their food, as their eyes had not had time to adapt, or felt too unnerved to move safely through the trees. Around 3 times a year, a supermoon occurs, when the full moon is at its closest to the Earth. The moon's distance to Earth varies throughout the month, because its orbit is not a perfect circle. When a supermoon event occurs, the moon is about 46,000 kilometers closer to the Earth than during the period in its cycle when the moon is furthest from Earth. During a supermoon, light levels are about 30% brighter than at any point in the moon's cycle, and it appears much brighter in the sky. A recent study found that wild geese responded to these supermoons while overwintering in Scotland. Small devices which measure their behavior were fitted to the animals. Researchers found that the geese's heart rate and body temperature increased at night during supermoons, when typically at this time of night they would have been subdued. The birds didn't respond to supermoon events when the moon was covered by very heavy cloud and the night stayed dark. It appears that, a bit like with humans, the bright light of a supermoon woke the geese up, causing their heart rates and body temperatures to increase potentially in preparation for daytime. For centuries, mankind has been fascinated about the relationship between human behavior and the lunar cycle. Many folklores and fables are connected to our interactions with the moon, the most extreme example being that of mythical beasts that roam the world when a full moon is shining. It was once believed that the lunar cycle influenced a range of strange changes to a person's behavior, and that of wider society. For example, many believed that levels of argumentativeness and aggression were influenced by the moon. The word lunacy, still used to describe extreme recklessness, comes from the Latin word lunaticus, meaning of the moon. A series of scientific studies published about 30 years ago found that there was no concrete evidence of any link between the lunar cycle and human behavior. The moon's influence on us might remain the stuff of legend and myth, but the confusion it sows among wild animals is very real indeed.
Now listen a second time.